I didn't have to do this, believe me. There's nothing easy about it. But I had to do it. I love our country. I love the people of our country. And I felt I had to do it. Thank you. One thing we all know is that we will never solve our problems by relying on the same politicians who created these problems in the first place.
This is CNN, home of fake news.
Former President Donald Trump is back on the campaign trail and returning to a familiar playbook. Trump's speech in Waco, Texas was littered with his old lies about the 2020 election and the border wall.
Yeah, go fuck yourself, retard.
CNN's Daniel Dale joins us now with a fact check. Daniel, I guess, one of the questions that we ask is where do we begin? Sometimes I feel like it's easier to count the truths in his speech versus the lies, but...
You are fake news.
Where can you take us on this?
It can be. Let's start this time with a wildly exaggerated figure that former President Trump keeps using, despite fact checks from me and others, for the amount of military equipment that was left to the Taliban upon the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Listen to this.
We are a nation that surrendered in Afghanistan, leaving behind dead soldiers, American citizens, and $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment anywhere in the world.
So that 85 billion figure is not even close to true.
Unbelievable. I mean, no one picks the phone up and says, hey, this $85 billion in military equipment, you want to just leave it here for this enemy that we've been fighting the last 20 years?
It's estimated by the Pentagon that the Taliban now have $85 billion worth of American military equipment.
Or if any of this military equipment or weapons are used to harm or kill an American, the blood is directly on Joe Biden's hands.
Trump can't seem to get through the rally these days without lying about the border wall. This is one that we've heard time and again. Let's listen.
I built hundreds of miles of wall and completed that task totally as promised, and then I began to add even more wall in areas where it was needed.
Let's fact check this one.
I think I did this after the last big Trump speech on your show. So
yes.
Again, former President Trump did not finish the wall. He essentially refutes his own statement by saying it was finished, then we were building more where it was needed. It was still needed because it was not done.
I built hundreds of miles of wall.
The agency says it's also making progress building President Donald Trump's wall along the southern border with Mexico. The acting secretary says more than 180 miles of new border wall has been built.
President Trump is scheduled to visit Yuma, Arizona. The visit will mark the completion of the 200th mile of the border wall system between the U.S. and Mexico.
I built hundreds of miles of wall.
Again, former President Trump did not finish the wall.
A ceremony in Texas today commemorates 400 miles of new border wall constructed under President Trump.
So we can verify that under President Trump, 400 miles of new border wall or close to that number have been constructed.
Acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf arrived in McAllen, Texas to mark the 400th mile of border wall construction under the Trump administration.
This is what the wall looked like across the San Bernardino Valley in February. This is what it looks like today. In the final weeks of the Trump presidency, the rush is on to finish building at least 450 miles of the border wall. Customs and Border Protection officials say at least 438 miles of that are now complete.
Trump made one of his first public appearances since last week's Capitol Hill riot, traveling to Texas to tout construction of the border wall.
About 450 miles have been built or reconstructed under the Trump administration.
And we know this from official figures released by Customs and Border Protection right after Trump left office. They said 480 miles had been constructed under Trump, it was 458 miles completed under Trump, but 280 remaining miles had been identified for wall construction but were not done.
But unlike those who came before me, I kept my promises. And today we celebrate an extraordinary milestone, the completion of the promised 450 miles of border wall, 450 miles. Nobody realizes how big that is.
458 miles completed under Trump, but 280 remaining miles had been identified for wall construction, but were not done. So
a lot of it, a lot of the wall you have is incredibly natural. You have the mountains, you have the rivers, you have some very powerful water areas, you have some areas that are virtually impossible to get by. So we didn't need walls everywhere, but where we needed them, because it's been so successful that we've added nearly 300 miles, and that's currently under construction. This was our original wish, to get these areas done where there was such trouble. And now we have it. It's either in construction or pre-construction, an additional 300 miles.
Having 280 miles left to go is not even close to complete.
And Mexico never paid for it, for those of us who are old enough to remember that one.
Because I know the fake news likes to say it. When during the campaign, I would say Mexico's going to pay for it. Obviously, I never said this, and I never meant they're going to write out a check. I said they're going to pay for it.
We're now learning more about exactly how a President Trump, if that were to become reality, would actually try to force Mexico to pay for a border wall. He laid out his plan in a 2-page memo that he sent to the Washington Post.
When you have a $58 billion deficit and you have a $10 billion wall, it's real easy. And that's on a yearly basis, the 58, it's really easy. And they don't understand it.
On our southern border, don't worry about it. Remember, I said Mexico's paying for the wall. With the full understanding that the country of Mexico will be reimbursing the United States for the full cost of such a wall, okay?
When I say Mexico's going to pay for the wall, that's what I said. Mexico's going to pay. I didn't say they're going to write me a check for $20 billion or $10 billion.
The southern border wall, is your plan still to have Mexico pay for the wall?
Yes, it will. One way or the other, Mexico is going to pay for the wall. That's right. It may be through reimbursement, but one way or the other, Mexico will pay for the wall.
Are paying for it with the incredible deal we made called the United States, Mexico, and Canada USMCA deal. It's a trade deal.
Representatives from the United States and Canada announced they had reached a deal. The United States-Mexico-Canada agreement will replace the North American Free Trade Agreement.
Throughout the campaign, I promised to renegotiate NAFTA, and today we have kept that promise. This is a truly extraordinary agreement for the United States, Canada, and Mexico. The USMCA is the largest, fairest, most balanced, and modern trade agreement ever achieved.
In your campaign, promising supporters that Mexico is going to pay for the wall and that the
again.
wall was going to be made of concrete.
Very nice question, so beautifully asked, even though I just answered it.
You didn't
Look,
answer.
let me
The
just tell you,
USMCA
excuse me,
has not even
excuse
passed
me,
Congress
excuse me,
yet,
you
sir.
ready? Are you ready? I just told you that we just made a trade deal, and we will take in billions and billions of dollars, far more than the cost of the wall. The wall is peanuts compared to what the value of this trade deal is to the United States.
Having a trade deficit of $58 billion a year, and the wall's going to cost $10 billion, that's one of the easiest negotiations I've seen.
And Trump references legal issues. Here's what he had to say about that.
Prosecutorial misconduct is their new tool, and they are willing to use it at levels never seen before in our country. We've had it, but we've never had it like this. We must stop.
What's the reality on this one?
Look, we don't know a lot about the various investigations. They're shrouded in secrecy. I don't want to declare that they're perfect investigations, but there is no evidence of actual prosecutorial misconduct at the
President Trump, for this, it was going after parents who showed up at school board meetings. If you're a traditional Catholic, you were labeled a domestic extremist. If you're pro-life, you're targeted by this Justice Department. So, I mean, if they can do it to a president, they can do it to anybody, and they are. That's the scary thing. And then when you think about this prosecutor, understand, the Department of Justice didn't take this case. The Federal District of New York didn't take this case. Cy Vance, the former district attorney, didn't take this case. And even Alvin Bragg, when he got the job, didn't take the case. He only is now taking the case and bringing the case forward because of what? Because Donald Trump announced he's running for president, and he's winning in every single poll. This is political, and the country sees it for what it is.
Indeed, when he makes these claims, he does not provide any specific corroboration, any specific proof for any misconduct by any of these prosecutors.
Right. which is what he always does. All right, Daniel Dale, thank you very much. We appreciate it.